At 65, Simon Cowell finally admitted the truth about Susan Boyle. What he said will surprise everyone who grew up watching talent shows. Simon Philip Cowell wasn't born into ordinary circumstances. He was born into a world where ambition and creativity were like oxygen. October 7th, 1959, London. His father ran the music business. His mother was a ballerina and socialite. From the outside, it looked glamorous. But behind closed doors, Simon's childhood was far from a fairy tale. He was restless, fiercely independent, and constantly testing boundaries. Schools couldn't contain him, authority didn't impress him. He was the kind of kid who asked questions no one had answers for, and sometimes got in trouble for it. That rebellious streak, that would become the signature of the man the world would later know as the toughest, sharpest judge in entertainment history. Even as a teenager, Simon was learning lessons about people, how they act when no one's watching, how talent and potential are often hidden in plain sight. Little did anyone know the same instinct that made him a troublemaker in school would one day make him a genius in spotting stars the world had never imagined. His early life wasn't filled with obvious clues of stardom. It was messy, imperfect, and real. And that, oddly enough, was perfect training for the stage of life he was about to step onto. If you're from the pre-1970 generation, you're gonna want to see this. It will completely surprise you by the end. After leaving school, Simon didn't have a smooth ride. He wasn't handed a shortcut. Instead, he took on every odd job he could find. From menial tasks on TV sets to endless errands, he watched the industry like a hawk. And then, through a mix of family connections and relentless determination, he landed a mailroom position at EMI Music Publishing. On paper, it sounded boring, but for Simon, it was like being dropped into the engine room of a giant machine, and he learned fast. He watched, listened, and studied everyone around him. Who had the spark? Who could capture an audience? Who had that undefinable it factor? Slowly, he climbed the ladder, stepping into the world of A&R artists and repertoire, the part of the business where talent either rises or gets crushed. By the 1980s and 90s, Simon was quietly becoming a legend. He signed bands like Five, Westlife, and others, not because he followed trends, but because he could see what the public would crave before they even knew it themselves. And here's the thing. Simon's instincts weren't just smart, they were almost reckless. He trusted gut feelings over polished appearances, taking risks that others laughed at. Some deals failed, sure, but the ones that succeeded changed the music landscape forever. It was this combination of brains, boldness, and unflinching honesty that would later make him not just a mogul, but a television icon whose judgment could make or break careers overnight. By the early 2000s, Simon Cowell was ready to step out of the shadows, and he did it in a way that would change television forever. Pop Idol in the UK was his first real stage, and he brought with him a sharp eye, a fearless attitude, and a style of honesty no one had seen before. But what made Simon different wasn't just that he could critique. It was the way he made every word count. Every look, every smirk, every cutting comment carried weight. Some people hated him for it, others couldn't get enough. And somewhere in between, Simon became the guy the world couldn't look away from. Then came American Idol, and suddenly he wasn't just a British personality, he was an international phenomenon. Millions tuned in, hanging on every judgment, every decision. The X Factor and Britain's Got Talent followed, turning him into a global star maker. And that's when the world really saw it. Simon Cowell wasn't just a judge, he was a force. He could take unknown singers from obscurity and make them legends, sometimes overnight. But fame didn't soften him. If anything, it amplified his signature. Ruthless honesty mixed with a rare instinct for raw talent. People began to whisper about him in hushed tones. Was he too harsh? Too blunt? Too unrelenting? And yet, no one could argue with results. The stars he discovered, One Direction, Leona Lewis, Susan Boyle, Little Mix, they were proof that Simon's gut instincts weren't just guesses, they were almost psychic. Then came 2009, and everything changed. Susan Boyle, a shy, plainly dressed woman from a small Scottish village, walked onto the Britain's Got Talent stage. In the audience, cameras rolled. Behind the judges' table, Simon's infamous raised eyebrow and skeptical smirk hinted at what everyone was thinking. This is going to be interesting. But in reality, Simon admits he judged her before she even opened her mouth. I thought it was going to be a disaster, he later confessed. And then she sang. Just a few notes, and the theater went silent. The audience's laughter turned to stunned awe. Simon felt it instantly. A physical jolt, almost like electricity running through the room. He realized in that heartbeat that he had underestimated someone in the most humbling way possible. What followed wasn't just a performance, it was a moment that would rewrite television history. Clips of her auditions spread online, breaking records, making millions cry, and turning a quiet woman into a global sensation overnight. But Simon also learned something personal that day. Susan Boyle reminded him that his job wasn't just about drama, cameras, or ratings. It was about people. Real people with real dreams, whose talents could be hidden behind appearances that society often underestimates. That moment didn't just change Susan's life. It shook Simon's perspective from the inside out. From that day forward, every unexpected contestant walking onto a stage carried a piece of Susan's story. A reminder that sometimes the greatest talent arrives in the most unlikely form. Simon Cowell didn't just judge talent, he created stars. Think about it, One Direction, Leona Lewis, Susan Boyle, Little Mix, names that dominate pop culture. But behind the glitz and glamour, Simon's process was almost surgical. He had this uncanny ability to spot what people didn't even know they wanted yet. He could see raw potential where others saw awkwardness or ordinary faces. And that skill, it made him dangerous, in the best way. Audiences often focus on the drama, the tension, the harsh critiques, but Simon's real superpower was his vision. He understood human psychology, audience expectations, and the emotional pull of storytelling and music. Every performance he judged wasn't just about talent, it was about narrative. Who would rise? Who would fall? Who would surprise the world? And with Susan Boyle, he learned something even bigger. The moments that shock us the most are often the ones that teach us the most. That day, he realized his role wasn't to judge from appearances. It was to listen, observe, and be ready to be transformed by talent he couldn't have imagined. Simon's influence didn't stop at the contestants. He reshaped the way the world watches talent shows. Television executives took note, producers studied his instincts, and millions of viewers became part of a cultural experiment where the underdog could suddenly become a superstar. It was more than entertainment. It was a global stage for human emotion, and Simon was its conductor. Off-screen, Simon Cowell's life has been just as dramatic and headline-grabbing as his career. From his 6-year relationship with English TV presenter Terry Seymour to a brief engagement with makeup artist Megan Husseini, Simon's love life has often played out under the unforgiving glare of the public eye. Each relationship carried its own highs and lows, and the media was relentless, flashing cameras, whispers, and endless speculation. But perhaps the most transformative chapter began in 2013, when Simon's relationship with Lauren Silverman made international headlines. The story wasn't simple. It involved legal battles, divorces, and public scrutiny that could crush anyone. Yet through it all, Simon remained remarkably private and measured. When Lauren became pregnant, the world was watching. And on Valentine's Day 2014, the couple welcomed their son, Eric, named after Simon's late father, a deeply personal moment that changed Simon forever. Fatherhood gave him a new lens on life, a sense of responsibility, patience, and perspective that no amount of fame or money could teach. The man who once shocked audiences with his blunt critiques now spoke openly about the ways parenthood softened his edges, giving him empathy and a new appreciation for life beyond the stage lights. Simon and Lauren's relationship has been a slow burn story of resilience and loyalty. Over the years, they were seen traveling, attending events, and raising Eric together. In 2022, they announced their engagement, marking a major milestone in a relationship that endured intense scrutiny but survived. Proof that Simon's life, like his career, is a careful balance of risk, strategy, and deeply human moments. So next time someone surprises you or someone doesn't fit your expectations, remember Simon Cowell's revelation. Sometimes the greatest moments come from the most unexpected places, and the ones who shock us the most are the ones who change us forever.